Hey, what's up, A&P students? We are here for our final video on bones, which is just fantastic. So today we're going to be talking about the pelvis, the pelvic girdle, as well as the bones of the lower limb. So what we got here is a pelvis. We got a female pelvis right here, and we can see all four bones of the pelvis. So when you say the word pelvis, you are referring to four separate bones. So the four bones are the left coxal bone, the right coxal bone, the sacrum, and the coccyx. We've met the sacrum and the coccyx already when we did the vertebral column. We're just adding the hip bones here, and the hip bones are more correctly referred to as the coxal bones. Okay, so those are the four bones of the pelvis. Now keep that number 4 in mind for a second, because there are also 4 joints in the pelvis. So the sacrum here is going to be involved in 3 of those joints. So the sacrum is going to have a sacroiliac joint on each side. So this part of the coxal bone here is called the iliac portion for reasons we'll see later. And the sacrum and the iliac part of the coxal bone are making a sacroiliac joint right there. That's the right one. That's the left one. The 2 coxal bones are also meeting anteriorly. This joint right here, number 3, is called a pubic symphysis. And a symphysis is a slightly movable cartilaginous joint. And that's what we've got here. Our 4th joint is the sacrococcygeal joint, which is a joint between the sacrum and the coccyx. So pelvis has 4 bones. Pelvis also has 4 joints. Now there is something called the pelvic brim. Remember that this sticky out piece of the sacrum right here is called the sacral promontory? And imagine you started here and you kind of went around. There was a surface you could walk around all the way to the pubic symphysis, and you could keep on going all the way back to the sacral promontory. And that surface right there is called the pelvic brim. And it's going to serve as the dividing line for 2 separate areas, the true pelvis and the false pelvis. So let's take a look at where those are. If we are below the pelvic brim, so think about the circumference of this reddish circle as being on the pelvic brim. Anything below it, so shaded in this reddish color here, is the true pelvis. The true pelvis is going to contain parts of the colon, it's going to contain the urinary bladder, as well as various reproductive organs. Now, if below the pelvic brim is the true pelvis, then it stands to reason that above the pelvic brim is the false pelvis. And we'll find more parts of the colon as well as parts of the small intestine in that false pelvis. So notice the false pelvis is more superior, the true pelvis is more inferior. The true pelvis is more encircled by bone than the false pelvis is. All right, so 2 pelvies, true and false. Let's now look at the pelvic girdle. The pelvic girdle consists of 2 bones, just the right and the left coxal bone. So we had 2 pectoral girdles when we did the upper limb. We've got just 1 single pelvic girdle made of the 2 coxal bones, the right and the left coxal bones. So the pelvic girdle, longer word, but fewer bones in it. Pelvis, shorter, term, but it's got twice as many bones in it. Okay, let's deal with the pelvis in another way. So this is a pelvis right here, of course, plus some extra lumbar vertebrae we got here. And what I want you to check out is this angle right here. This angle right here, when it looks like an upside down V, it is most likely a male pelvis. When it looks more obtuse of an angle, when it's more spread out here, so less sharp of an angle, that is most likely a female pelvis. So just a little nice fact to stick in your brain right there. Okay, let's talk about those hip bones. The hip bones are better known as the coxal bones. Of course, there's one on each side. The coxal bone, as we just saw, articulates with the other coxal bone, as well as the sacrum, but also with the femur. Because it's part of the pelvic girdle, it attaches to the femur. A lot of muscles are going to attach to the coxal bone, no surprise, considering the hips' major roles in walking, running, and all sorts of lower limb activities. Now the structures we're going to go over, we're going to see something called the acetabulum. We'll see a foramen. You can probably see that foramen already. A couple regions, a crest, a notch, a couple surfaces, and a tuberosity. We're familiar with tuberosities most definitely. So let's get started with the acetabulum. The acetabulum is the socket of the hip bone, of the socket of the coxal bone. Coxal bone, there we go. It is a relatively deep fossa. It is reminiscent of the glenoid fossa in the scapula, but the glenoid was shallower. The glenoid's shallowness emphasized mobility over stability. The depth of the acetabulum emphasizes stability over mobility. So the femoral head is going to articulate here. And as you probably guessed, the word acetabulum means little cup for vinegar. If you actually guessed that, I would be just like straight up guessed it. That would be the most amazing guess of all time. So in ancient Rome, vinegar was kept as like a condiment on the table in these little cups. And whoever saw this, whoever named this fossa here was like, oh, that looks like the ancient Rome vinegar cup. Let's call it the acetabulum. Anyway, what an out there etymology we got. Always interesting, always fun. So, near the acetabulum is a relatively large looking foramen here. And this foramen is called the obturator foramen. Now, the word obturator basically means covered up because in actuality, there's a membrane covering up almost the entire thing. Almost the entire thing gets a membrane covering it up. So it's very impressive looking in the bone, but in the living tissue, so in vivo, in the living tissue, it's covered by a membrane called the obturator membrane, the covering membrane. Little blood vessels and nerves go through there. But it's actually not that awesome, despite its large size. You see it and you're like, whoa, giant stuff must go through there. But no such luck. Okay, what we're going to do now is divide the coxal bone into three parts. Because in the child, the three portions were three separate bones. So in the child, there are three separate bones. One of them is called the ilium, and it is the part outlined in red. Look at this nice big elephant ear looking thing. You take that elephant ear, you take the half of the acetabulum near it, and that is all the iliac region, which was a bone called the ilium in childhood. Okay, now what we also got to consider is another region. So if I take the bottom quarter of my acetabulum, the back half of the obturator, and the bigger, thicker kind of like curve of bone here, that makes up the ischial region of the coxal bone. So that was a bone called the ischium in childhood. If you are sitting with some good posture right now, you are sitting on your ischium. It's like you are probably sitting, if you're sitting up with good posture, like sit up straight for a second, and you are probably sitting right on this guy right here. All right, so that's the ischial region, or ischia, from the ischium, the bone it once was. Notice we don't say ischial, we don't say ischium. It is a hard k sound. All right, the final portion is the remaining bits. We take this bottom anterior quarter of the acetabulum, the anterior part of the obturator, and the little slenderer part of bone here, and that is the pubic region. It was a bone called the pubis in childhood. So 3 bones make up the single coxal bone in the child fusing together to make one bone. You start fusing when you're in your mid to late teens. You stop fusing when you're in your early to mid 20s. Okay. So good bonus question for the exam would be, how many bones are in the child's pelvis? So we did the adult pelvis at the beginning of this lecture, video, whatever you want to call it. And my question for you right now, this would be a good question for a bonus question on a test, is how many bones would the child's pelvis consist of? All right, let's keep on going. So I've switched up my hip bones for some reason here, and I'm on the iliac part, the iliac region here, and this ridge of bone, like kind of where you put your hands in your hips, that is called the iliac crest. Bunch of abdominal and back muscles attached there. So that's the iliac crest on the iliac region. We also see an indentation, kind of like between where the iliac region and the ischial region are meeting. And there's this notch here. We've seen a notch or two in some other places. And this notch is called the sciatic notch. The word sciatic refers to the ischium. And there's a big old nerve called the sciatic nerve that runs down the back of the thigh, and it exits the pelvis by way of this notch. All right. On that note, let's flip this guy over, and let's look at the medial surface of the iliac region. Here is the medial surface of the iliac region, and we got this rough part. This is called the auricular surface, and if you recall, the sacrum had an auricular surface as well. So remember, the sacrum had an auricular surface, and those two surfaces meet to make that sacroiliac joint, which we've seen a couple times now. So that is the auricular surface. By the way, here's a handy trick. If you are looking at the hip bone and you are looking at that auricular surface, and the obturator foramen is sitting right there near you, and the auricular surface is on your right, this is a right. This is a right. Yes, it is. So that would be a good exam question right there. Okay. We got some more pelvic structures to do, some more coxal structures to do. In this same view where we see the auricular surface, big rough region, we also see a small rough region on the pubic portion. And this is called the symphyseal surface. It's called the symphyseal surface. And the symphyseal surface on the right coxal bone is going to articulate with the symphyseal surface of the opposite coxal bone. That's going to form that anterior joint between the hip bones that we met a moment ago, which was called the pubic symphysis. And I think I have a picture of an articulated pelvis. Yes, I do, as a matter of fact. So we saw this picture earlier. This is the sacroiliac joint right here. This is where the auricular surface on the sacrum, which is going to be inside there, meets with the auricular surface on the iliac part, which is going to be inside here. And that is the sacroiliac joint. The two surfaces are rough to restrict movement. And I'd have an identical situation over in this sacroiliac joint. Now, what else do I see here? I see the pubic symphysis. That was that anterior joint. And the part of the hip bone, the rough surface, that's right where I'm drawing the line. If we were to break this joint and separate them, those are where the two symphyseal surfaces are. All right. On that note, we are done with the hip bone. Done with the coxal bone. Now we're going to meet the femur. Got a nice looking femur here, posterior view of a right femur. The femur, of course, is going to articulate with that coxal bone, but also with your patella and your tibia, and obviously a whole bunch of muscles attached to the femur. It's going to have a head, just like the humerus did, and the radius and the ulna for that matter. It is also going to have a neck, a pair of new structures called trochanters. We haven't met those. Something called the linea aspera, some condyles, some epicondyles, as well as a patellar surface. So we're going to meet all of these structures. So I'm zooming in on the posterior view of the proximal epiphysis here. Nice, smooth, rounded head. The head is going to articulate with that hip socket, which was the acetabulum. I got an error here. Let's scratch that out. This should say acetabulum of the coxal bone. I'm going to go back and fix that later. Always love it when I find a mistake. Anyway, smooth for good movement. So as the head of the femur, and next to the head, you can see the neck of the femur, connecting that head to the rest of the diaphysis of the shaft. Now, another nearby structure opposite the head is this thing called a greater trochanter. If we hearken back to the humerus, remember the humerus had a head, then an opposite structure called the greater tubercle. This is an opposite structure serving basically a similar role, but this is called a greater trochanter. Don't say trochanter, it is trochanter. It's going to attach to some very important hip muscles, including this one called the gluteus medius. The word trochanter has this idea of running in its origin, and the muscles involved that attach here are very much involved in running. Says a greater trochanter. And of course, if we got a greater trochanter, what else are we going to have? You can probably see it. If you're thinking lesser trochanter, you are right, and I bet you can see it. I guarantee you can see that lesser trochanter. It's right there. Were you right? I knew you were right. Good job. Smaller, more posterior projection just below that neck. There's going to be a cool muscle called the iliopsoas that we'll meet later that attaches there. All right. Zooming out to look at my femur. So we did the proximal part. We did the head of the femur. We did the neck of the femur. We did the greater trochanter. We got the lesser trochanter. Now if we look at the diaphysis, there is a ridge on the back of the diaphysis here. Remember how the humerus had something in its diaphysis called the deltoid tuberosity? The femur also has something on its diaphysis, not as much of a bump, it is more of a ridge, so it gets the word linea, which means line. It is a rough ridge. The word aspera means rough or hard. Bunch of muscles are going to grab on here. A couple of your quads, one of your hamstrings are going to anchor onto this linea aspera. Always nice to notice the linea aspera. By the way, if you're looking at the back, ask yourself which side the greater trochanter is on. If the greater trochanter is on your right, it is a right. Okay, let's jump down to this distal epiphysis here. So on that distal epiphysis, I got a medial condyle here. I know this one is medial because I can see the head of the femur right there. There is the medial condyle. So the medial condyle of the femur is going to articulate with the medial condyle of the tibia. And of course, if there's a medial condyle, there's a lateral one too. So on the same side as the greater trochanter, I got a lateral condyle to my femur. It's going to articulate with the lateral condyle of the tibia. If I spin this guy, if I zoom in on this guy, so here is my lateral condyle. Here's my medial condyle. And there's a little bump above it. A ligament we meet later called the fibular collateral ligament is going to attach here. A big calf muscle called the gastrocnemius that we'll meet eventually attaches here as well. It's called the epicondyle because it's above the condyle. Now you may recall we had epicondyles on the humerus, but we did not use the word condyle in the humerus. Instead, we talked about a trochlea and a capitulum. They were basically the condyles, not basically, they are the condyles of the humerus. We just didn't use those words. We used the word condyle for the femur, though. And near the condyle, we have an epicondyle right there. And if there's a lateral epicondyle, hey, no surprise, there is a medial epicondyle as well. The tibial collateral ligament, which we'll meet later today, as well as, hey, that same muscle, the gastrocnemius, that's your big calf muscle, attach to this guy. All right, let's flip this guy over. When I flip this guy over, I still see my condyles nicely. And then above them, I get this smooth region here. This is called the patellar surface. The patella, obviously, is going to articulate here. Smoothness lets the patella slide as you flex and extend your knee. Okay. Speaking of the patella, there it is. Posterior surface is going to articulate with the patellar surface on that femur. The anterior surface is going to anchor to a ligament we're going to meet called the patellar ligament, and a tendon we're going to meet called the quadriceps tendon. We're going to look at the knee joint in a little bit, and we'll meet these ligaments and the other ligaments we mentioned and this tendon. All right, real quick, that was the patella. Now let's do the tibia. The tibia is going to articulate up here with your femur. It's also going to articulate with your tibia up here as well as down here. Bunch of muscles are going to attach to this tibia. And it's going to have some condyles, a tuberosity. We've met condyles, we've met tuberosities. And it's also going to have a structure called a malleolus. That's a new one right there. Although that may remind you of one of the middle ear bones, which was the malleus. All right. So what I did here, I'm going to go back for a second. I'm going to look at the tibia, this proximal part, from a superior view, okay? So I'm looking at the front of the tibia here. I know it's the front because I see this bump right here. What I want to now do is look at this top, but I'm going to look at it from a superior direction. And when I do that, I see my medial and my lateral condyles. My medial and my lateral condyles. By the way, I know the medial one is always going to be on the same side as this structure here. We haven't talked about it yet, but this structure here is the medial malleolus. So I know I'm going to have my medial condyle up here, and I'm going to have my lateral condyle up there. So just a little orientation thing there. So that's my medial condyle of my tibia. articulates with my medial condyle of my femur. And of course, this must be the lateral condyle of the tibia, which is going to articulate with the lateral condyle of the tibia, of the femur rather. There we go. All right, I want to know why I went backwards right there. I didn't want to go backwards, I wanted to go forward. This is the anterior view, proximal part of the tibia. The condyles are going to be right there and right there. And this bump here is called the tibial tuberosity. This is going to let me know I'm looking at the front. The patellar ligament is going to attach here. So this bump attaches to the ligament that connects your tibia to your patella. That's called the tibial tuberosity. We've seen tuberosities before. Probably should have erased all that. Down here, we have this guy. He looks kind of like a styloid process like we met in the ulna, for example. But he's called the medial malleolus. Malleolus means little hammer. He has a bony projection. He is on the medial side of the distal epiphysis there. He is going to articulate with an ankle bone, a very proximal ankle bone called the talus. Ligaments are going to grab on here as well. If you are sitting down and are able to do so, or even if you're standing up and are able to do so, find that inside bump on your ankle. That inside bump is that medial malleolus. Now, let me show you something else interesting here. As I look at this guy, I am looking at it from the front. How do I know it's from the front? I see the tibial tuberosity. And when I'm looking at it from the front, I ask myself, which side is the medial malleolus on? And it is on my right side, so this happens to be a right tibia. Okay, that is pretty much it for the tibia. Yes. I want to backtrack for a second. Bear with me here. Bear with me. Just doing a little backtracking. Yeah. You know what's funny? I just realized that I mentioned this guy right here, the ischial tuberosity, but then I failed to have like a page dedicated to him. So I mentioned that he existed, but I didn't have a page for him. And I just realized that when I was talking about the tibial tuberosity, my brain was wondering, did I go over the ischial tuberosity? And I hadn't. I'm sure you would have noticed, right? So here's the ischium. Remember, this is the ischial region right here. Gets that bottom back corner of the acetabulum, the back half of the obturator foramen, and this sort of wider sea of bone here. And now what I know you can see, there is this rough region right here. This rough region right here is called the ischial tuberosity. Bunch of important leg muscles are going to attach to that ischial tuberosity. So it is totally something we've got to know. My bad on not having a slide dedicated to it, but I'll make up for that by underlining it really heavily right now. Okay? All right. Sweet. Sorry about that. Is that going to be my last mistake? Not a chance. I always joke the only way to have like mistake-free stuff is not to post anything. Like if you want a mistake-free video, that's hard to do. Because I'm going to make a mistake, but I'm going to correct it. Anyway, to err is human, right? So I must be a heck of a human. So I err a lot. All right, enough about me. More about the fibula. The fibula is a slender bone, does not bear much weight. It is the lateral leg bone. So the fibula is lateral. The fibula. The LA in fibula stands for lateral, fibulateral. Fibulateral. It's going to articulate with the tibia. It is going to articulate with the tibia. And it's also going to articulate with this ankle bone called the talus. Bunch of muscles attached there. No surprise. It's got a head and a lateral malleolus. That shouldn't surprise us either, because we just met the inside bump of your ankle and we called that the medial malleolus. So of course the outside bump has got to be the lateral malleolus. All right, so in this lovely looking fibula here, I have circled the head. It's got a nice facet right there to articulate with the tibia. It's rounder looking, especially when you play with one. Definitely play with a fibula. It's going to articulate with the lateral condyle of the tibia. We're going to see a fibular collateral ligament in a moment that attaches to it. Bunch of muscles grab on here. One of your important hamstrings, this big guy called the biceps femoris, grabs on here. Really cool muscle that we'll meet later on. Okay, so that is the head. The opposite edge is the lateral malleolus. It is going to be flatter, and I think of it as being like pointier. It's going to articulate with the talus, which is one of our ankle bones, one of our tarsals that we got to know. And a bunch of ligaments are going to attach here as well. All right. There I see my tibia and my fibula together. There they are. You can see that proximal joint between the head of the fibula attaching right near that lateral condyle of the tibia. And you can see we're going to have the lateral malleolus down here, which is going to articulate with a bone called the talus. We'll look at that in a second. And that's the lateral malleolus. It's the outside bump of your ankle. All right, cool. Zooming in, this is actually the talus. That's that ankle bone, that tarsal that we've been talking about so far. And I can see the distal tibia here. This is my distal tibia. This is my medial malleolus right here, meaning this is my lateral malleolus right there. All right, cool. So we're going to step away from the ankle for a moment, and we're going to step to the knee. So this is, of course, a knee joint right here. This is a knee joint. And the knee joint is actually three separate joints. The patella is hiding under the connective tissue here. Whoops. The patella is hiding under the connective tissue here. So there's a joint between the patella and the femur called the patellofemoral joint. Then there's also going to be a medial and a lateral tibiofemoral joint. And it's actually three separate joints that make up the knee. So as we look at the knee, of course, we know the bone up here is the femur. We know the patella is right here, although it's covered up. We got the tibia down here, and we got the fibula right here. We are going to meet one tendon, 5 ligaments, and 2 menisci. So it's nice we're able to spend some time with a joint and a model of one here. All right, this guy is superior to the patella is the quadriceps tendon. It's going to attach this big thigh muscle we would have up here called the quadriceps femoris to your patella. So this tendon, dense regular connective tissue, lets your quadricep pull on your patella. By the way, all the tendons and ligaments we talk about in this model are, of course, made of dense, regular connective tissue. Dense meaning there's a lot of collagen. Regular meaning the collagen is parallel, and that is awesome for tensile strength. All right, if we go distal here, we find the patellar ligament connecting the patella to the tibial tuberosity. So the quads pull on the quadricep tendon, which pulls on the patella, which pulls on the patellar ligament, which pulls on the tibial tuberosity, which lets you straighten your knee. So if your knee is bent right now because you're sitting down and you straighten it out, you do a leg extension, you are using your quadriceps and pulling on these three guys sequentially. Now, if we look on the tibial side, we have a ligament called the tibial collateral ligament. Collateral means on the side, and it's on the tibial side. Now, this happens to be the medial side. The tibia is the medial leg bone, so this guy is often called the medial collateral ligament. So we got the epicondyle up here that it's attached to, coming down and grabbing onto the tibia. This is going to stop the lower leg here from moving medially, which we don't want that to happen. Now, if there is a tibial collateral ligament, there's going to be one on the other side named after that bone that is called the fibular collateral ligament, also called the lateral collateral ligament, which is kind of a mouthful. This guy, you can see it on the epicondyle up there, on the head of the fibula. This guy is going to prevent this lower leg from moving laterally. Now, if we bend the femur backwards and we open the knee up, we can see a pair of ligaments that are making an X. Because they're making an X, because they're crossing each other, they are cruciate. So cruciate means you are making an X, you are making a plus sign. And this guy is going to come off that lateral condyle of the femur, come down in between the condyles of the tibia. The patella is right here, by the way, so I know this is the front. And so I can see this guy in front of the other one. He is the anterior cruciate ligament. And of course, actually, before I keep going, he's going to stop the tibia from moving anteriorly. Well, hey, that makes sense. And of course, if there is an anterior cruciate ligament, then in the back, notice I got no patella back here, I see my posterior cruciate ligament, which is going to come off that medial condyle, come back down to that, there we go, come back down to the tibia and stop the tibia from sliding posteriorly. So that's my posterior cruciate ligament. Nice and thick and strong. All right, we're almost done with this knee joint. By the way, notice that when I look at it from the back here, fibula is on the right, so it is a right. Now the last two things we got to do are these pair of guys called menisci. Meniscus is the singular, menisci is the plural. This is the medial meniscus between the femoral and tibial condyles. It is a shock-absorbing pad, cushioning pad made of fibrocartilage. The one on the other side is doing the same thing. It is the lateral meniscus. Whoops. If I backtrack to that open picture, I can see the menisci here as well. I can see those menisci ever so nicely, the lateral and the medial menisci. The word meniscus means like crescent-shaped curve like that. And you can kind of see how it's got that going on. If you've ever taken chemistry class, you know the word meniscus. Hopefully. All right, with that, we are done with the knee joint. We now got to do the ankle bones. There are going to be 7 ankle bones called the tarsals, but I got bad news for you. We're just going to do 2. We've met one already. We already met the talus, which was the tallest of the ankle bones there. We're also going to do the big heel bone, which is the calcaneus, which I see there. Okay, let's look at that talus first. So there is that talus. It's the tallest. There it is in that side view there. It's going to articulate with both the tibia and the fibula. Then underneath it articulates with the calcaneus, hits another tarsal right here. Bunch of muscles and ligaments are going to attach to this guy. Super important bone. We looked at this picture already. This is the talus right here, articulating with the tibia and with the fibula. All right, under the talus is the calcaneus. This is the heel bone. Don't call it the heel bone, call it the calcaneus. It's going to articulate with the talus plus with another tarsal bone. Bunch of muscles attached here as well. So those are my two tarsal bones I got to know. Now, if we go beyond the tarsals, we got metatarsals. They're just like the metacarpals. Remember the metacarpals? We did those earlier. These are my 5 metatarsals. Big toe is number 1. Pinky toe has number 5. Those are my 5 metatarsals, all articulating with some tarsal bones as well as with some proximal phalanges. Speaking of phalanges, there are 14 of them. 14 toe bones, usually. Not everybody's got all 14, but that's another story for another day. Big toe contains 2, so just a proximal and a distal on him, just like we had in the thumb. All the other toes generally contain 3, with a proximal, a middle, and distal on all of them. Again, the ones on the big toe are number 1, all the way up to the pinky toe, which will be number 5. All right, so here we see our 5 proximal phalanges on our foot, articulating with a metatarsal proximally, and with either a middle phalanx or a distal phalanx if you're on the big toe. Let's jump to the middle ones, and again, it's only 2 through 5 because the big toe doesn't get one because he's only got 2 of them. So 2 through 5, we got the middle phalanges there, all of them articulating with a proximal phalanx proximally and a distal phalanx distally. Well, that's nice and easy there. Okay, finally, we got our distal phalanges. Each distal phalanx, number 1 on the big toe, all the way through number 5 on the pinky toe. And this is the final video on bones. So if you've watched all, I don't know how many, it's like 3 hours worth of videos on the bones. That's not that bad, actually. But good on you for that. And I will see you next time when we're talking about the brain. All right, bye-bye.